how's my reception?
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So no
Thank
question about it, man. What's going on today? What do you have today?
Okay, very good. With a brief tribute to a fallen leader, Charlie Kirk, I
Mm.
will launch into the issues of the day, particularly the really crushing expenses of just maintaining yourself in this high cost economy, and looking at two areas: insurance for one, homeowners insurance, and healthcare as another major challenge.
Okay, I'm going to step aside. I'm going to step aside. Now, I understand some people are grieving over Charlie Kirk. Okay, I understand that. But the same day, there were three children that were shot. What was it in Colorado? But nobody even talked about it. I think we
Mhm.
should be up in arms over the violence that's going on around the country, no matter where it comes from or who does it. So, with that, I'm going to step aside.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, that Charlie Kirk's mission, was pretty simple: to defend free speech, to champion open debate, and keep alive the promise of a free society. So we all will miss his presence, and hope to bring the country together after this horrible political assassination. Okay, folks, the issue of managing to take care of yourself and pay for your expenses legally in this country is getting greater, seems to be getting greater and greater. The first like to just touch on a couple of areas of cost for families that will help to, elucidate and exemplify the issues that our current taxpayers are having to face. First, with homeowners insurance. Wow. Using California as an example, California can solve its insurance crisis. But insurance companies out here, as well as in other states, really are leaving in droves. Now, before we delve into that, let me introduce myself, Everett James, your trusty tax reporter who comes to you every week on Wednesdays, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. On the East Coast. And we make every effort to keep you educated, but also invite your participation. So please, if you have a question or comment, please make it known to us by calling 951-522-9877. To repeat, 951-522-9877. And for those who would like to do it through the internet, EVJTAX1 at gmail.com. That is EVJTAX1 at gmail.com. This announcement will be repeated before we close today. So, folks, to begin, as I mentioned, with the total insurance crisis that is blowing up all of our budgets. To use California as an example, and I'm sure other states are having the same crisis. California is facing an insurance crisis out of proportion. Insurance companies are pulling out entirely, leaving businesses and consumers with too few options, and premiums that are just skyrocketing. Many homeowners are turning in desperation to the FAIR plan, FAIR plan out here in California, and that's the state's insurer of last resort. which is now overwhelmed far beyond its intended capacity. The crisis can be solved, and California's insurance markets can be repaired so that insurance is fair, affordable, and readily available to everybody in California. I'm sure that's the case in other states as well. The crisis can be solved, and the insurance markets can be repaired so that insurance is fair, affordable, and readily available to everybody in California and other states. The solution really starts with leadership that's clearly independent from the insurance industry itself. The Department of Insurance and the insurance commissioner at the helm have to work effectively with insurers while maintaining total independence. Regulation serves the needs of the customer, supposedly, not the producer. The first thing is pricing has to be aligned with risk. The Department of Insurance is finally implementing its sustainable insurance strategy. What is that? That allows insurance companies to use forward-looking risk models and include the costs of reinsurance. What is reinsurance? That's a standard form of reducing risk. This is the right start, although the reforms are still going so slowly. It's only a beginning. A healthy market demands robust choice and competition. Now, without it, a handful of companies can jack up prices. The biggest barrier to healthy competition is the excessive time it takes to approve standard rate applications. It helps customers to review rate applications to make sure they are proper. It harms customers to have them languish indefinitely. Nationwide, approval averages 60 days in California. In California, as I mentioned, nationwide, the approval averages 60 days, not California. In California, it averages 300 days. Aligning California with the national average will give customers faster access to competitive rates and more choices. Now, as insurers return, most people will be able to leave the FAIR plan. It's the FAIR plan out in California. Recent experiences with how poorly the FAIR plan is handling smoke damage claims undermines why nobody really should be forced to rely on the system that was only intended to be a last-ditch backup for a tiny number of customers. Over time, aligning prices with risk and fostering competition will restore fairness and market stability. But you have to do more than just trust the market. Department of Insurance should create an annual state insurance rate benchmark report that compares California rates to all the other Western states, factoring in the cost of living. Insurance companies' profitability should be tracked to make sure it's reasonable but not excessive. The next step in solving our insurance crisis is to address the damage done by the increasing severity of wildfires. Wow. That is the root cause, causing the rising costs. And there's really two components of that: hardening homes, against fire, and improving forest management. The Board of Forestry is currently developing science-based standards called zero zones. That provides actions that homeowners can take to make their homes more fire resistant. Once those standards are finalized, homeowners should be provided appropriate incentives to make the necessary investments. And as you might guess, those investments can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. The Department of Insurance can help by ensuring that homeowners' rates incorporate meaningful discounts for implementing the what they call the Zone Zero. And as I mentioned, it can be so costly, up into the tens of thousands of dollars. So, just discounts on homeowners' home insurance is not going to be enough. Finally, we have to do everything possible to reduce wildfire severity by managing our forests better. California is too far behind the optimal level of controlled burns and other forest management actions that are needed. And it might be helpful if California, as in other states, might be helpful if they look at some of the graduates that they hire and include some graduates who have graduated in forest management and folks who are in the forestry industry. The second major area that I introduced with is health insurance. Wow. The millions of Americans could face higher rates. The enrollment in the ACA, what does that stand for? The Affordable Care Act. That has surged to a record 24 million people, and it surged largely due to billions of dollars in subsidies that have lowered costs for a lot of people. The expanded subsidies allow some lower income enrollees to get health plans with no premiums, literally no premiums, and then it's allowed caps or limitations to the amount higher earners pay for premiums to 8.5% of their income. It also expanded eligibility for middle class earners. Wow. I would think that there would be some justification for changing those eligibility rules to include people simply in a lower income bracket, and to exclude folks who might be considered to be in the middle income or certainly high income earners. With many of those subsidies, they're within months now, really just a few months away at the end of the year. Many of those subsidies are about to expire, the health insurance subsidies. And some of those people already have gotten notice, many people in California and other states, that the monthly fee that they're going to be charged for insurance coverage, health insurance, they're poised to spike next year. Insurers, particularly those operating under the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, they've already sent out notices in just about every state proposing premium increases of as much as 50%. 50%. Lawmakers are facing pressure to act from some of the country's biggest industries, including the insurers that cover people on the marketplace and hospital executives, who say they're going to already be squeezed by both the Medicaid cuts in President Donald Trump's big, beautiful tax bill. There's really companies have come in and said that they're going to raise premiums without the subsidies because healthier and younger people are more likely to opt out of coverage when it gets more expensive. That's going to leave more insurers and leave to cover the older and the sicker patients. So there's a tug of war right now in the Congress as to how Obamacare spending plays out. That is, the folks who are covered by the marketplace plans. The the original Obamacare legislation was supposed to expire at the end of this year, but now that does not appear to be something that's going to happen because there's just too many people who are in a terrible financial strait and are having enormous difficulties just conceiving of handling the bills, normal bills, just to maintain minimal health standards. The On Capitol Hill, the issue, it really has become tangled up in a larger fight over government funding as the shutdown looms at the end of this month. Wow. So what are we talking about? Less than 2 weeks. We're going to be facing the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, and the possibility, of a government shutdown. The House Democratic leaders, to include the chairperson Chuck Schumer, and House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, they've told their followers that we will not vote to keep the government open unless there's an extension of the health care tax credit. And they're saying that that's a watershed moment. That's the extension of that tax credit, particularly in the Affordable Care Act. That's part of the deal. Republicans have said that they want more time to look at the subsidies and potentially scale them back. Well, they'll also have to wait for a signal from Donald Trump, who is not yet weighed in on those subsidies. Jeffries last week said that we will, as I say, we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to rip away health care from the American people. Well, Republican leaders are taking a look at a stopgap bill that would keep the government open for a few weeks and really are unlikely for now to include the extension. So you'll hear about and read in the newspaper the potential bill that at least is coming from the Republican side of the aisle. And to get it passed, they're nicknaming it the stopgap bill. The majority leader, our Senate majority leader, John Thune, Thune, I'm not quite sure if that's the correct pronunciation. He's a Republican from South Dakota. He has said he wants to see a proposal from Democrats on how to extend the subsidies, since they're actually pushing the subsidy issue. Still, Thune, and feel free to call and correct my pronunciation. But he has ruled out quick action, even as he noted that premium notices will go out soon, because they usually send those premium notices out several months ahead of the application or initiation of the additional expenses, to give folks a chance to accumulate the money necessary to meet the new premium levels. But Thune has set a short-term spending measure to fund the government for several weeks while Congress finishes its budget bills. Is simply not likely to include an extension of the benefits, of the health care benefits. And then on the other side of the aisle, Mike Johnson, the majority leader, in the House, has said that many of his members would oppose an extension. But at the same time, he has not ruled it out. In recent days, 15 Republicans in competitive political districts introduced legislation to extend the tax credits for 1 year. So I would say that it's a very, very good, high likelihood that there's going to be tax credits, for health insurance, particularly under the Affordable Care Act. And it's likely to be extended. In Missouri, Senator Josh Hawley, Hawley, commented that if Congress doesn't act, some premiums will skyrocket. And he said they'll skyrocket by not just a little bit. We're looking at massive increases. People just simply will not be able to afford it. Texas Senator John Cornyn, Cornyn, in case I'm misspelling his last name, he commented these things Congress should just scale back the subsidies for the highest income people who receive them. That's probably going to be, I would imagine that's probably going to be the most practical approach to this issue, even to include not just scaling back the subsidies for the folks who have the highest income, removing them from the eligibility list for those subsidies. Open enrollment, it begins, believe it or not, November 1st of this year. And folks will begin to really see sticker shock, as they say. This issue, is really going to be front and center. Now, as I mentioned, it is the healthcare costs in the United States are rising every year. What are some of the factors contributing to these increases? Well, there's several factors, two major ones: rising prescription drug prices, and two, increased utilization of services, and number three, an aging population. Again, the increasing drug prices, the increasing just use of services, probably a lot of it not just due to expanding the services of folks who are eligible, but also adding beneficiaries and adding members of the general population who basically have come across, who have entered the country illegally and are not technically or legally eligible even for those services, but using backdoor runaround strategies, adding them to the tax base, tax services, tax bill for the residents of all of the states. And so that's two rising drug prices and a greatly expanded use of the services. And then number three, what's number three? An aging population. Now, for example, insurers are now, and they've categorized this and computed it, they're now seeking a median 18% premium increase for the ACA, Affordable Care Act marketplace plans in 2026. Wow, that's just a few months down the road. On average, the Affordable Care Act, the ACA marketplace, or Obamacare as they call it, insurers, they're raising premiums by about 20% starting this next year. Wow. So, how has our spending on healthcare changed over time? Well, in statistics from December 20th of 2024, in the previous year, in 2023, healthcare prices increased by 2.3%, pretty much in line with previous years, because it's been increasing by 2 to 3% every year. And the health services use increased by 6%, higher than typical premiums in the previous year. The healthcare experts are warning that the costs for insurance, as I mentioned, are going to be rising every year, and the actual percentage of the gross domestic product, representing healthcare. What is that? Well, and healthcare costs are now representing 17% of the gross domestic product in 2022, and that percentage of the gross domestic product, that's expected to increase to just under 20% by 2032. So the actual healthcare premiums of folks who are covered by Obamacare or the ACA, Affordable Care Act, they'll by next year, they're expecting that just the premiums to be covered by Obamacare are going to cost the average person 75% more next year. That's almost unbelievable, but unfortunately, Congress has to do something. A lot of the actual insurers that provide or at least financially provide the approval of paying for the premiums, they're predicting that the premium increases will be continuing to rise over the next 5 years. A more recent analysis proposed by the marketplace companies, they see premium increases in next year, in 2026, from insurers across all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Each spring and summer, the health insurance submit these rate filings to state regulators to justify the premium changes for the coming calendar year. Several factors that drive premium changes, and usually the cost of medical care, that's the price which sets the prices of health services and the amount of care people are receiving. Usually that is the primary driver of premiums. However, as we go into 2026, there's also policy changes that insurers expect will drive up their costs and thus increase premiums beyond what they otherwise would charge. What are some of the factors that insurers say contribute to the higher rates next year? They include the first one, enhanced premium tax credits that make coverage more affordable will expire. So a lot of those enhanced credits, they're going to be expiring at the end of this year. That drives up out-of-pocket premium payments by over 75% on average. This is expected to cause the healthier enrollees to drop out drop their coverage, and that creates a sicker risk pool. The Peterson KFF Health System Tracker analysis showed the expiration of enhanced premium tax credits raised proposed rates by an additional 4% on average. A second factor could be, and has been shown to be tariffs. Tariffs could drive up the cost of some of the drugs, the medical equipment, and supplies. Some insurers report that tariffs and the uncertainty surrounding tariffs are driving rate increases about 3% higher than what they ordinarily would be. There is such a thing as the Marketplace Integrity and Affordability Rule. That legislation and rule makes changes to how the marketplace operates and how people are enrolled. These changes were only finalized in early July and late June of this year, but it's not yet clear how insurers may respond. Early indications are that individual market insurers will be increasing premiums in 2026 by more than they have since 2018. Across 105 ACA marketplace insurers in 20 markets, that's 19 states and the District of Columbia included, premiums are increasing by a median amount of 15%. These filings are still preliminary and they may change. So what is also driving the premium increases? Well, in most years, the rising healthcare costs, which includes the price of care and the increased use, they're the major drivers for increasing rates going into 2026. The cost of healthcare services like hospitalizations and physician care, as well as prescription drug use, raise the premiums to cover their increased costs. Those changes are about to be faced by you, myself, and other taxpayers. Another change that's expected for next year is the quote enhanced tax credits, which are set to expire. The vast majority of insurers are mentioning in their rate filings, with most saying that they'll raise premiums by an additional 4%, more than they would have if the enhanced tax credits were renewed. For the last 5 years, enhanced premium tax credits have increased the amount of financial assistance enrollees in the ACA marketplace. That has lowered their monthly premium payments. But if Congress takes no action to renew these enhanced tax credits, enhanced subsidies will expire at the end of this year. And that's going to cause premium payments for subsidized enrollees to increase by over 75% starting in January 2026. Insurers do expect a large share of enrollees to leave the market, and those that enrollees will be healthier on average, thus leaving the risk pool sicker on average. The less commonly mentioned, though, are the impact of tariffs. Well, that's a huge political debating point. Those tariffs certainly are going to increase the cost of pharmaceuticals that we face all the time. Now, of the insurers that publicly quantify the impact of tariffs, the impact on premiums is about 3% on average. So that's just on the premiums. Another factor creating uncertainty in the rate, the filing process, is the implementation of the Trump ACA integrity rule. Based on what insurers have filed so far, this generally does not seem to be driving rate changes in either direction. Ho, ho, hey, isn't that something? That's maybe something the politicians can hang on to to buttress the position of their party leaders. Insurers and state regulators are really still in the process of finalizing rates for the upcoming plan year. So, those premium increases that I have mentioned, may change. Insurers vary in the assumptions that they are making about premium drivers in 2026. There are other factors not mentioned this morning that vary market to market that could play a role in the premium changes. So across over 100 Affordable Care Act marketplace insurers, premiums are rising by a median, and the median cost is going to be 15% in 2026. So how has that created such challenges and burdens and sacrifices the American people? Well, for many years, KFF Polling, a polling firm, has found that the high cost of healthcare is a burden on our families, and that healthcare costs factor into the decisions about insurance coverage and just seeking out of medical care. These costs and the prospects of unexpected medical bills also rank as the top financial worries for adults and their families. This data summarizes recent polling on the public's experiences with healthcare costs. What are some of the main takeaways? Well, just under half of U.S. adults say it's really difficult to afford healthcare costs, and 1 in 4 families say they or a family member in their household had problems just paying for basic healthcare in the past 12 months. Black and Hispanic adults, those with lower incomes, and the uninsured are particularly likely to report problems affording healthcare in the past years. What are those groups again? Particularly being affected: Black and Hispanic adults, folks with lower incomes, and then the uninsured. The costs of healthcare can lead some to put off needed care. About a third of adults, 36% of adults, say that in the past 12 months they've skipped or just postponed getting health care they needed because of the cost. I'm sure we all have family members and friends in the general community who mentioned that they have skipped their prescriptions and cut back their prescriptions, and even got skipped going for periodic evaluations because of the cost. Now, of note, 3 in 4 uninsured adults under age 65 say they went without needing care because of the cost. The cost of prescription drugs prevents some people from filling prescriptions. About 1 in 5 adults, about 25%, say they have not filled a prescription because of the cost while waiting, while a similar share, 23%, say they have instead opted for over-the-counter alternatives. And how wrong can over-the-counter alternatives be, or how wasteful of funds can that be when they're doing their own doctoring and deciding whether the ingredients in some of these over-the-counter alternatives are what are going to be effective in treating whatever whatever is causing them medical distress. About 1 in 7 adults say they've cut pills in half or skipped doses in the last year because of the cost. The only time I think, with this reporter's own experience, about the only time that I remember cutting pills in half is when it was a therapeutic a therapeutic sign of progress, and the doctor agreeing to cutting it in half just to cut back on the possibility of getting addicted to the particular drug. A third of all adults say they've taken at least one of these cost-saving measures in the past years, including larger shares of women and those with lower incomes. Healthcare and the debt, is such a burden for most American taxpayers. In 2022, about 4 in 10 adults, 41%, reported having debt due to medical or dental bills, including debts owed to credit cards, collection agencies, family, friends, banks, and other lenders to pay for those costs. With disproportionate shares of Black and Hispanic adults, women, parents, those with low income and uninsured, saying they have health care. Just about everybody has health care. That's except perhaps the upper middle class and the upper income class. Those who are covered by health insurance are not immune to the burden of healthcare costs. Almost 4 in 10 adults, insured adults under the age of 65, that's about 38% of the population, they worry about affording their monthly health insurance premiums, and large shares of adults with employer-sponsored insurance. That's the abbreviation is ESI, employer-sponsored insurance. Those with marketplace coverage rate their insurance as fair or poor when it comes to their monthly premiums and out-of-pocket costs to see a doctor. Can you imagine that the 38% worry about those healthcare premiums, and 38% rate those insurances fair or just poor when it comes to handling their monthly premiums or out-of-pocket costs. Now, note a good number of adults say they are worried about affording medical costs, such as the cost of healthcare services not covered by insurance, such as co-pays and deductibles, or just unexpected bills. About 6 in 10 adults say they are either very or somewhat worried about being able to afford healthcare services, 62%, or unexpected medical bills. So, I mean, this is really, quite a ongoing problem, and one that I will be hopefully able to, keep you up to date on. And before we get to some of the more, overriding concerns about a budget, there has been a new development which particularly affects folks in San Bernardino area, California, and Redlands, California area. Redlands being the home of this reporter. But Metrolink launched a first zero-emission train. The train itself runs on an aero line between San Bernardino and Redlands. This certainly just affects folks in those California areas. But the nation's first hydrogen-powered zero-emission train rode out of downtown San Bernardino mid-morning this past Saturday, carrying its first passengers on Metrolinx Aero line. The train, which is titled Zero Emission Multiple Unit, and it's called the ZEMU, Zero Emission Multiple Unit for Southern California, San Bernardino, and Redlands area residents. They abbreviated ZEMU, Zero Emission Multiple Unit. Well, it's the first of its kind for transit in North America. It's manufactured by Stadler, Stadler. That's a Swiss train maker. The train will operate exclusively on a 9-mile aero route between Redlands and San Bernardino. Redlands, California, and San Bernardino, California. Hundreds of residents celebrated the ZEMU's initial trip, if I'm pronouncing that abbreviation correctly, ZEMU's. They celebrated the initial trip as the blue and white train left the downtown San Bernardino station, made its way to the University of Redlands. As reported by the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. The train has seating space for 116 passengers, plus standing room for 104 more. And if my addition is correct, that's about 220 total passengers at one time, to include those seated and those standing. So the San Bernardino organization began testing the train about 10 months ago. The ZEMU is powered by a fuel cell technology. That's a kind of a battery that uses hydrogen and oxygen in a chemical reaction to make energy. And it emits only water vapor and no pollutants. Again, it uses hydrogen and oxygen in a chemical reaction to create the energy, but it just gives off water vapor, but no pollutants in the air. Wow, such as carbon dioxide. Well, the switch to zero emission railway vehicles has been in the works now since the opening of the Aero line in 2022. Saturday's launch before the brings the first of three $23 million trains planned for the Aero line. 23 million, wow. Under the San Bernardino organization, under their contract with Stadler, there's an option for the purchase of additional ZEMUs so that the entire line may eventually run on zero emission trains. So the entire line of public transportation may wind up, being provided by these zero emission trains. For now, the ZEMU joins the fleet of clean diesel engine locomotives known as diesel multiple units, or DMUs, on the line. Okay, what does that stand for? That's a diesel multiple units, DMU. On Saturday, this past weekend, passengers were encouraged to try these ZEMU with free fares. But commuters and leisure travelers can check out the emission-free daily train on the Aero line, and something that really does affect everybody, and particularly those who do not have their own car, who cannot afford to pay someone or pay a cab or pay for transportation, just want to cut down on their transportation back and forth to Los Angeles. Believe it or not, that connects passengers to the Metrolink San Bernardino line with service to Union Station in Los Angeles. Again, this new innovative transportation arrangement called the Aeroline. It connects passengers to the Metrolink San Bernardino line, which in turn connects to the Union Station in Los Angeles. Okay, so folks, with the remaining time, let's take a quick look at the what we're coming up on as the budget, which in the past and optimally has always been agreement on how they're going to handle fiscal year 1926. Well, the Democrats have heard about a bill that the Republicans are looking at. That bill is called Stopgap Bill. So you'll be hearing about that in the news. But that's what is a stopgap spending bill? Well, basically, apparently the Republicans have already, evaluated the situation and are coming to the conclusion that the only thing that they could be able to get through the Congress and get the other side of the aisle to agree to is what's called a stopgap spending bill. And basically what that does, that just simply moves forward the bill that was approved in the previous year. Democrats, however, are under intense pressure not to do so, because that's the type of arrangement that was made last year, and they're just determined not to do the same thing again this year. So some of the top Democrats this past Tuesday said they opposed the Republican stopgap spending plan to fund the government past the September 30th deadline. And the September 30th deadline is less than 2 weeks away, folks. The decision of Democrats to reject that GOP plan, it just reflects increasing anger among Democrats on Capitol Hill at President Trump's policies and his move to what they feel is to circumvent Congress, including his assertion last week that Republican leaders should not even bother to negotiate with Democrats in an effort to win their votes. This also came amid all kinds of pressure from liberal activists who were enraged earlier this year when Democratic senators allowed a similar bill to advance and kept government funding flowing. So that they're still great. Not to mention the depth of animosity between the two parties now. You have all of this anger, built-up anger from the other side of the aisle. That really has not ever been dealt with. Probably in better days, with more cooperation between the Democrats and the Republicans. There were actually friendships that were developed and created, and friendships, long-term friendships, were blossomed during years in the past between members of opposite sides of the party, and where there would be regular social contacts, dinner contacts, sporting event contacts, family contacts even. And it was absolutely amazing lifelong friendships that developed between members of opposing parties. So this Speaker Mike Johnson, he released a temporary spending bill that would keep funding flowing largely at just what they are at current levels until just before Thanksgiving. And that will be boosting some spending on security, for federal officials. So that does set up a replay of a scuffle over government funding that played out in March of this year. Senate Democrats at the time allowed Republican stopgap measures to move forward. And they argued that blocking it would only give more power to Mr. Trump to steer federal funding however he saw fit during the shutdown. Oh, my goodness. Anyway, that's what they believe. The move blindsided and infuriated, at that time, back in March, House Democrats who had voted unanimously against the bill. It also drew a fiery backlash from the party base, which had demanded that lawmakers shut down Mr. Trump's government. Well, so, they're still angry at Trump's administration's efforts to rein in congressional spending power and face a base that is, apparently, from what news I've heard, is just absolutely, quote, spoiling for a spending fight, unquote. Top Democrats appear determined not to go down the same road again as they did last for fiscal year 25. Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, both minority leaders, said that their members would not support a spending bill that extends the current funding unless it also includes concessions from Republicans on health care. They have not yet specified what those might be. So I could almost guesstimate, you might say, or predict that there are going to be some concessions, probably from the Republican Party, on the health care subsidies. I'm almost certain that's going to take place in order to get something through Congress to get legal funding for our spending. There was a joint statement on Tuesday suggesting that the Democrats were demanding that Republicans add to the package an extension of the Obamacare subsidies that were set to expire at the end of this year. The House Republican-only spending bill fails to meet the needs, as what they say, of the American people and does nothing to stop the looming healthcare crisis. That's what Mr. Schumer and Mr. Jeffries are saying. So basically, they also say at a time when families are already being squeezed by higher costs, Republicans just refuse to stop Americans from facing double-digit hikes in their health insurance premiums. Now, while Republicans have signaled a growing openness or a growing willingness to extend the subsidies, Mr. Johnson said on Tuesday that there was zero chance he would do so as part of the temporary spending legislation. Predictably and unfortunately, there are some Democrats who are openly pining for a government shutdown. That's what Mr. Johnson said. So Democrats are indeed facing a dilemma in the spending showdown. Some are aware of wading into a politically unpopular shutdown that would be difficult to reverse, and for which they could shoulder considerable blame. They don't want that. They don't want that. That blame. So the battle goes on. Republicans are also have refused to cut a deal to provide permanent protection from deportation for undocumented immigrants brought to the United States as children, and also given a nickname as Dreamers. I wonder who that was responsible for that action. President Barack Obama Well, with Republicans hammering him by name for a shutdown, Mr. Schumer quickly retreated, cutting a swift deal to reopen the government after winning a commitment from the GOP to hold a vote on protecting those immigrants known as Dreamers. I would also predict, as an observer of the congressional budgeters and the budget planners, I would predict that since it appears that the Dreamers have really won a place in the hearts of most Americans, no matter what their political stripes. I would imagine that most Americans would go along and would agree to providing additional protections to the children who came here as uh, 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 as folks who did not have any other status and who were not adults. I would imagine that most Americans would approve of those permanent protections for that class of our citizens. So this year, Mr. Schumer did really take a different tack. He argued in March that the Republican stopgap spending bill was a terrible option, and that allowed Donald Trump to take much more power via a government shutdown, and he claimed that was a worse option. Well, there is no off-ramp for a government shutdown, Mr. Schumer said at the time. The off-ramp is in the hands of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. We could be in a shutdown for 6 months, or even 9 months. That could happen. So we're hoping that the shutdown, doesn't happen. The situation, this year is a little bit different. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat of New York, declined to rule out challenging Mr. Schumer in a primary. And here she is. She is looking for position, saying that there was a deep sense of outrage and betrayal about his decision. Protesters gathered outside his Brooklyn home, Indivisible. The progressive activist group called on him to step down. So there is, some growing opposition to Mr. Schumer and his position. Republicans are in a much weaker position now than they were then. The big, beautiful bill is highly, supposedly unpopular, according to Mr. Schumer. However, many people on the right refer to his legislation, as extremely helpful to the middle class and extremely helpful to those who have families, particularly younger families. So this will continue. With the few remaining moments that we do have, just mention something about businesses. There are some key provisions, 5 key provisions that have been passed in the Congress, greatly benefiting businesses. Business lobbying groups push Congress hard for these, and many of them were expiring or expired business tax breaks to be restored and extended. Now they got their wish thanks to the One Big Beautiful Bill. 5 provisions. Briefly, we'll start with the first year bonus depreciation. Prior to 2023, businesses could deduct the full cost of qualifying rentals with lives of 20 years or less. It was 80% in 2023, 60% in 2024, and 40% in 2025. The One Big Beautiful Bill fully revived the rate to 100% for business assets first put in use after July 19th of 2025. Number two, firms can fully now deduct the cost of manufacturing production facilities, including real estate that would otherwise have to be depreciated over 39.6 years. Number three, Section 179 expenses increase for 2025. Number four, the full expensing of domestic research and development costs is permanently restored. And lastly, the popular 20% qualified business income deduction is now permanent. And I'll go over those in more depth next week. And looking forward to your comments. Everett James at 951-522-9877, 951-522-9877, or my email, ebjtax1@gmail.com. Good luck, and we'll be seeing you next week.
All right, Ev. Hey, thank you for that, Ev. And guys, you can check out Ev each and every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East. All right. Hey, guys, stick around, kick back, grab a glass, and enjoy. And come back tonight, 5:15 p.m. On the West Coast, 8:15 on the East for Cultural Excellence. New music. We play new music from up-and-coming artists each and every week. So stay tuned. Thanks, Ev.
Okay, see you next week.